Corbolic V2. This is a super safe and effective natural anabolic. Not only is this product going to help you increase protein synthesis, which basically means muscle recovery and growth, it also may inhibit myostatin, which is a protein in your body that is known to inhibit muscle growth. This is a complete natural anabolic that works through multiple different pathways, has multiple trademarked ingredients. If you are a natural athlete looking for that edge, Corbolic V2 is what you need. Get yourself some.
Welcome to the Pro Physique Code.
Welcome back.
Pop-Tarts.
Yep. I gotta work out right after this, so I gotta be fueled up. I got meeting John Hansen, Maria Vegas, Ray Clark, going over to Powerhouse, so I got a bunch of stuff going on. But we got some fun stuff. So maybe Pro Physique Cruise 2026, like February, March. And that might sound ridiculous to people, but
Oh no, I think that's a perfect time of year to go. I've done cruises in January before, and honestly, it's a great time of year to go in my personal opinion. It's usually a little chilly, like going out from the port, but usually depending on where you go, like Mexico, Bahamas, like even in January, those places are pretty nice.
man, if we could go to Cancun, that would be so awesome. So yeah, we would just basically, here's how we would do it. We would just tell y'all, hey, we're going on this cruise on these dates. Come or don't come.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We wanted to do one, me and Paul were talking about later on in the fall, but Lexi didn't want to do that because she didn't want to get stuck out to sea for 3 days of vacation at a hurricane.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, hear me
God
out.
forbid we're stuck on a boat.
Hear me out. I remember just last year, I'm still traumatized from the 2 back-to-back hurricanes that we had here in Florida, and living, well, I'm not trying to give away where I live, but I'm very close to the cruise ports, and I would see these boats that would get stuck out there for extra days. And I know that sounds nice in theory, but I don't think I'd want to be stuck out on a ship because there's a hurricane. You just never know. What if, I don't know. I just don't think that
Lexi lives at 24 Water Street, Unit 7.
You know, like the penthouse at the Addition?
Yeah.
That's where Lexi lives with all of her client base.
Yep, that's exactly where I live. Oh, I don't even think I would want to live over there, but no, it's honestly, I feel very safe with where I live anyways, because my building is you have to have a fob to get anywhere, so we're good.
We're good. All right, so yeah, so we're just throwing that idea around because I don't know, I like the idea.
I think,
Be
yeah, I
fun.
think it'd be fun. And something else too, just put out there before we get started on our topic that I thought was kind of neat. So this upcoming weekend is Junior Nationals, and the pro list for the pro show came out last night. So for those of you who are listening, last year was the first year they did the pro show at Junior Nats, where if you win your pro card, you can literally go straight to the pro show on that same day. But what I think is cool this year is if you look at the list, Ashley Kaltwasser's on it. And in my personal opinion, I think it'd be so cool if you turn pro at Junior Nats to go on to the pro show and be compared to Ashley Kaltwasser. I just think that's a really cool opportunity. I just had to point that out.
Yeah, there'll be 8 new bikini pros, all the class winners. Fingers crossed we have a couple of them. But the turnaround is the way they do it is they start finals with bikini, so they get their pro cards. Then they do all the other divisions awards, and then pro bikini goes on after. So it'll yeah, I think it's a nice addition. I'm so curious how the numbers are going to be for this show, because there's been some big shows lately, like some big numbered shows.
Yeah.
And then there's been some shows that were small. So I'm I don't know what's showing up for Junior Nationals. I'll tell you this, a lot of my clients are being very particular about what shows they're choosing for nationals. I have a client in California, she just wants to go to USA's. I told her I think she'll turn pro at Universe. She's like, nah, I don't want to do it. I'm like, okay. So people are being particular. So I'll be curious to see how the numbers translate at Junior Nationals. It's Sandy's show, so I expect it to do very well.
Yeah, I know it will definitely be interesting. I'm excited to see it though. And there's some other heavy hitters on that pro list too. I want to say, just off the top of my head, I know Brittany Gillespie's on it. I know Ali Vouthauer's on it. There's a couple of other kind of heavy hitting names. So it'll be awesome.
Yeah, well, Ali turned pro there Unfortunately, she turned pro there the year before. They didn't have the pro show yet. So I think maybe that's kind of, she's already qualified. So I think maybe that's why she wants to go back and just, get on that stage again.
Yeah, makes
So,
sense.
but
Yeah,
yeah,
we've got a
and
couple of big show weekends. Well, honestly, I feel like it's just the time of year. Like between now and August, September, like there's just a lot of really good shows.
Yep.
yeah, no, it's now's the time, especially this is the time where if you are a newer pro, you got to be selective. You got to go there when there's multiple shows on one day. Um, you know, this is where you can get your qualification because with the new rules, girls aren't able to sign up and then switch or wait until the list comes out and then pick a show. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, should we dive right into our topic for today?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Lexi, you came up with it, so you say it.
All right, so our topic, let me make sure I'm phrasing it right. Okay, we're going to talk about the worst contest prep mistakes we've seen as coaches, like maybe things we've seen or just things that come to mind, like worst mistakes you could make in a contest prep. So that's what we're going to dive into today.
Well, we could go into like just regular old mistakes, like maybe don't load up on water for 4 days and then cut down to zero. Like those kind of things that we talk about, like prep protocols and peaking protocols. But I want to talk about actual mistakes that are like not necessarily to do with practices, but just circumstance.
Yeah, definitely. Things maybe that people don't always think about, like outside of prep circumstances. Is that what you're kind of thinking about?
Yeah, like booking the wrong Airbnb or like, buying a flight to the wrong city or like I've
I
seen these
have
things.
a perfect story. Okay, I have a great story for this then, and it's my own personal experience. So whenever we're ready, I'm going to share that because that made me think.
Take it away.
Okay, well, this was actually my first show that I ever did. And this was like, it was the first time. So the show was in Orlando, and I was living in a dorm on the University of Tampa campus. So not like a big travel, right? But obviously it did require me to stay in a hotel. So this was like the first time in my life I had ever booked like my own hotel, and done all that for myself. So I booked the hotel and I get there and I didn't have a car, by the way. So I drove over with another girl who was competing at the show. And I get to the hotel and I had booked the same hotel as her very strategically. So that way we could like, I could ride with her because the hotel was separate from the show venue. So we get to the hotel and we get up there and she checks in and I got up there to check in. Granted, again, this is my first time ever like making a reservation for myself at this stage in my life. And so I give them my name and they're like, they couldn't find anything. So, okay, that's, and I'm already a ball of nerves because this is like my first show, didn't know what to expect. They're searching. I'm giving them my name, giving them, my information and they can't find anything. And they call around and come to find out I booked the wrong hotel. It was a different location, right? So
Yeah.
but thankfully, like the other hotel I booked, it was a chain, but like it was like 2 miles away. So it was not the end of the world, but that's where I ended up staying. And then, okay, then it gets worse. So then I go to that hotel and I go to check in, and thankfully, like that was where my reservation was. So we're all good there. When you check in, they ask for your ID. I did not. I didn't purposely forget my ID, but I did not have my ID. I forgot to transfer it into my bag. It was in a purse. I knew exactly where it was at in my dorm room. And so they like obviously would not let me check in without my ID. And I'm like frantic, almost in tears. I knew exactly where it was in my dorm room. So I called my roommate to see if she was there. Thankfully she was. And I was like, if I have my roommate FaceTime and get my ID and show it, like, will you let me check in? And thankfully they let me do that. But I had to FaceTime my roommate. She had to go get my ID, show it to them. It was a nightmare. Like it was just very stressful and it was not a great start to the weekend. So yeah.
Lesson learned. Yeah, those some of those hotels, like there are certain cities, I think it was Utah, where every hotel has the same name. It's like Westin
Yeah.
East, Westin North, Westin Southwest, Westin, you know, Avion, Westin. You're like, which one am I actually staying at? So yeah, I've seen that before too.
Yep.
Well,
Yep.
I
Always
made one.
check. the hotel. Same with the flights. Like I've never booked wrong flights before, but I feel like that's easy to do. Maybe
Yeah.
booking
I
for the
once booked, I booked a flight to Phoenix, got to the airport, went to check in, wouldn't let me check in. Get up to the desk. I'm like, hey man, it's not letting me check in. The guy's like, yeah, you're booked to fly out of Orlando. You're in Tampa.
Ooh.
Because I used to live in Orlando, so a lot of my stuff like was defaulting to Orlando at that time. So I just put my head in my hand and thought, okay, obviously this trip isn't happening. And luckily it was Southwest, and the guy goes, "There's a flight in 45 minutes out of Tampa to Phoenix. I got you on it." I was like, I will forever be loyal to Southwest because of that. Didn't charge me, didn't give me grief, just said go on your way. And I was like, oh
Wow.
yeah.
Well, I was booking my flight to Universe in a few weeks, and I got the confirmation later on the day. I went back and just double checked it, and I had booked it for 6 p.m. out instead of 6 a.m. out.
Oh boy.
So luckily, I was in that window where I could go back and get it changed. Else I'd have
Well,
been,
there's also early in my coaching career, I didn't double check the show days. So
yeah,
there's a couple times I had to rebook my flight the last second because I booked Friday and the show was Friday. I'm trying to remember. I think it was Daraja had a pro show and I just assumed it was on a Saturday. I think it was the Texas Pro the year she won. She was actually on stage on Friday. Yeah. So,
Yeah, that's tricky. Well, I remember we were looking before we all went to Pittsburgh this year. I think I said something to you, Paul, about how the like everything was on Sunday, and that was kind of
yeah.
like that threw everything for a loop. That was weird. But then
yeah,
last year, Paul, you and I, when we went, it was on Friday. Like that was when the pros, I
Yep.
think, went, and then Saturday was the amateurs. So yeah,
Yep.
always good to
it's
double, triple check that stuff.
this, especially the last 2 years, and especially this year, they're having shows on all sorts of days, and not just big national
Right.
shows. I had a client compete at the natural show out in Texas last weekend, and he competed on a Friday, like just a normal day on a Friday.
Yeah. The
Like,
natural shows, what I've noticed is they're doing either Fridays or Sundays, a lot of them.
is it like that? I've seen all
Yeah.
everyone I've seen has basically been on Sundays. I just
Yeah.
thought Friday is such a weird because it's not a national show.
I had Melanie, she did a show Friday, she did the natural bikini, and on Sunday she did the NPC fit model. So like she had to do, luckily it was local for her.
Yeah, I've seen that a couple times because I've actually had a couple girls ask me personally, like they're like, "Do you think I should do, the natural show on this day and then do the non-natural show the next day?" So I've been having that conversation with some girls recently too.
I wonder why they did the natural on a Friday and then the NPC on a Sunday. And almost like it's to prevent
Well, they did
crossovers
the
between the
natural
two.
on a Friday. They did it Friday night. So you checked in and you did the show Friday night. It was pretty small. Saturday was the men, Sunday was the women for NPC. It was a big show up there. It might have been the
Okay.
Emerald Cup or something
Oh,
like
okay, it was
that.
Emerald.
Yeah, it was one of the bigger shows. So like, they have their reasons, and as long as you know it, it's fine. But when you assume, oh, it's all right. So I got a good story that
There's been multiple times, just piggyback off that I have the dates down as a Saturday. I did this for the guy that had competed on that Friday, and I sent out his peak week plan. He was like, "It's Friday," and I was like, "Oh." He's like, "Does that change anything?" I'm like, "Absolutely changes
so
things."
I now on my peak week questionnaire that I send out, it says what is the date of the show and the time you expect to be on stage. Even if they're wrong, if I send them a plan and it said Saturday and they said Saturday, I'm like, cool, but that's what you told me. So I try to like,
Well,
hey,
the way I do it with my Google Sheets and the way the countdown's all set up and everything like that, I have all the dates and everything set up. But that
right.
was 100% on me on
Yeah,
that
no,
one.
I've made the mistake
That
before.
was my screw up.
Well, especially with like Europe and Asian shows and Australian
Yeah.
shows, they're almost always on Sunday.
Yep. Yes, they are, which makes those weekends fun when you have to get up for early check-ins on Saturdays for clients and turn around and immediately do it at an obscene time on Sunday morning
I
for
forget
them
what week. I think it was
because it's like
Junior
2
USA's
a.m.
weekend because Junior USA's was Friday. I drove back Saturday and it felt like it wasn't Saturday. And I had people competing on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday that weekend. It was literally like I was just on my phone the whole weekend. But yeah. All right. So I'm going to tell a story of what was almost a huge disaster. It was last year in London. I flew over there. Me and Steven went to Otavia Mazza's. It was her. She had done the Arnold, and then she had done the Arnold UK, and it was going to be our last show. She said she was burnt out. She was, tore up, and she's like, I just don't want to prep anymore. And I said, all right, well, we'll just do the show, and if you get qualified for Olympia, if not, we'll just end the season. So I flew over on like Wednesday. The show was Saturday, and saw her Wednesday night. Saw her Thursday. She was super flat. I just kept feeding her and feeding her, and she just kept looking better and better. And so Friday afternoon, final workout. I said, let's go train. She was looking a little flat again. Her weight started dropping. So I had her eat a bunch of food. I said, all right, I'm going to come back to your room in a couple hours. I want to just check on you before bed. So we get to her room, and me and Steven are like watching her pose, and I'm just looking at her like I didn't want to alarm her, but something was wrong. Like I was like, what is happening right now? I was like, what did you do since I saw you? I did nothing. I just took a bath and then I just relaxed. And I'm like, oh. So Steven's like walking around her apartment, and he looks in the garbage can and he sees a thing of Epsom salt.
I remember this story.
Yeah, she didn't tell us, or she didn't tell me that she was taking an Epsom salt bath. I just thought she was sitting in the bath, to like relax. So she literally sat in the bath and just flattened herself out. So I said, get dressed. We went to a restaurant nearby. I made her eat a steak and French fries and chug like, 64 ounces of water before bed. And it worked because she ended up winning the show. But if Steven hadn't done that, because there's a language barrier. She's not Italian like I'm Italian. She's Italian like English not so good.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
full
like
fledged.
there's
Like I speak Italian,
yeah,
Italian.
yeah. And her friend Sebastian was there. He's a photographer, and he was helping a little bit. But Steven saw the wrapper for the Epsom salt. So yeah, that would have been real bad if, because I was like, I really didn't know what to do. I was like, man, I feel like maybe we filled her out too much and she had softened up. But literally, steak and fries the next morning, I was like, whew, okay.
So I am deep relief. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, that reminds me, kind of similar, but not just like a little thing. I had a client last year. It was our first show together. It was not her first show she had ever done. But she in kind of same case scenario, Paul, where it's like in the moment, as a coach, you're like, oh my gosh, but you don't want to freak out the client in the moment because sometimes like you just got to keep their nerves low. But she sends me on Saturday morning of the show, she sends me a picture of her, and she was honestly very, very upset because I guess the tanning lady had sprayed her face without her like saying anything. And my client sends me a picture and she was just devastated. And like, of course, like it was very noticeable, right? But like as a coach, you're trying to, it was Saturday, there was only so much we could do. I'm trying to like tell her it's gonna be okay. Here we can try to do this. But it was just, oh, it was one of those situations. I felt so bad for her because like she thankfully did another show after that and like kind of redeemed herself. But even she, told me, she's like, gosh, just having that spray tan on my face, it really just made me so like my confidence wasn't there. That showed on stage, right? Because I think we've all been in that situation where female wise, like if something is off with your glam or you don't like your makeup or you don't like your hair or like your suit doesn't fit right, like even if your physique is perfect, sometimes just you don't feel super confident, like it shows on stage. But oh, I just felt so bad for her when she sent me that picture because I'm like, oh my God, but just tried to keep her calm. But yeah, it wasn't great. So that's another mistake to not make. Do not get your face spray tanned.
I haven't seen anybody do that in a long time.
No, I feel like they don't normally do this. This was like a very small Midwest show though. But I feel like normally, like most big tanning companies, Liquid Sunrays, Protan, they don't normally spray your face. And you don't even need to usually tell them like, don't spray my face. They just don't do it. So
I wanted to piggyback off with that with. It was a few years ago, and I've always have my own way that I do tanning with my athletes. I have like a whole pre-tanning thing that they do where they put base coats on before they ever go get sprayed because a lot of these shows you go to, they don't spray you heavy enough. And a lot of people show up on stage not looking dark enough, right? And it was one of the earlier class shows like a few years ago, and I had a few clients do it. And they walked in, and I remember them coming back like out of their makeup, like something just doesn't look right. And their faces looked completely white compared to the rest of their bodies. And it's because they all I guess all the makeup artists were doing pretty much the same foundation stuff to match the tan for most of these people. And because my athletes were a good bit darker than everyone else's, their faces ended up like super, super, super white. So now I have everyone make sure they go in and tell them, hey, I've put on a few coats of base coat before I got sprayed. And that seemed to have fixed a lot of those issues, especially for like newer competitors, right? Who don't really know if the makeup is good or not good. They don't get it
Yeah.
because it's a very
Yeah.
different look, right? Like on stage,
It
then when you see
really
somebody, it
is.
doesn't look like prom makeup,
Oh
right?
yeah,
It's very
exactly.
different.
Yeah, and that's why I think another mistake that sometimes like newer competitors make is, oh, I'm really good at makeup. I love doing my makeup.
Hmm.
I'm going to try to do it on my own. And some people can get away with that. I actually have my client Rosalinda. She does
Yeah.
makeup for she actually
That's what
did.
she does for a living, right?
Yeah, she does
Yeah.
makeup for a living. So like she's one of the rare people that I'm like, her makeup looks fantastic. But people who are just like, oh, I like doing makeup, I'm going to try to do it on my own to cut costs. Well, I always recommend if it's your first show, unless you're a makeup artist, like that's your job, get it done by a professional at least once so you can see what
Yep.
it looks like. Because I've been to a couple of shows recently, even where like I'll be in the crowd and, you know, I'll be looking at some girls and their makeup like just doesn't pop as much as it should. It's pretty, but it's like it's a pretty look maybe off stage, but on stage you really need that like pretty aggressive contour highlight. You need, your eyes shouldn't be crazy dark, but you should have a good amount of pop to the eyes. So it's like it's a hard look to master.
You should look like a streetwalker if you're not on the stage. Like if you go out to
Yes.
lunch after prejudging, people should be looking at you like, what the hell is this person wearing?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's when girls look beautiful on stage, is when they look like all eyes, all lips, contoured, and just like face forward. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
just
It's a lot.
It's
It's a
yeah.
lot.
I'll never forget Paul in 2023 at Republic of Texas. I remember after prejudging, I went with my mom to walk to like a donut shop to get some donuts, and I had all my
voodoo.
makeup on and we walked, you know how it is in downtown Austin, all those,
Homeless people fighting.
yeah. And I'm walking with like my makeup and my hair, and yeah, it was probably not the best thing to be doing.
I just thought of a great one. I just thought of a great one. It's been a few years.
Oh gosh.
USA's used to be in Vegas. I think they move it back there maybe, but so years ago, USA's NPC USA Championships was in Vegas, and the show was at the like auditorium on the campus. However, nowhere on any of the information did it say the address of the venue, and the campus is not small. So if you typed in the name of the venue, the Uber drivers and everyone was getting dropped off at like the administration building, and it was like a 20 or 30-minute walk from there, and it's 120 degrees.
But
So
it's a
the
dry heat,
girls,
Paul. It's a dry heat.
let me tell you,
I'm being a smart
everyone
ass.
went flat at that show. Everyone was so flat. The
Uh,
other thing was that venue, I mean, I know the air conditioning was on, but you couldn't tell. It was hot. And then you're in the middle of a college campus. You cannot leave. You can't go anywhere. Like you can't go to the store, you can't walk outside. It was 120 degrees. It was like being trapped in a heater.
oh
I just
man.
remember feeling like I was actually like driving to the store to buy like water for the girls, like cold water to help them cool off, because it was, yeah, a lot of them had all their makeup and hair and everything done and then walked across the campus. So the next year what I did was I did the thing where I dropped the pin, because there was a parking garage right where the auditorium was, but you had to have a different address than the school. So yeah, if you
Yikes.
can, the day before the show, go figure out where the show is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why like I think it can go both ways, but that's why like there are certain shows that I know of that I would recommend staying at the host hotel if you can. I know some people, like to try to get cheaper options, which, there's nothing wrong with that, but sometimes it is just really nice to stay at the host hotel when you can literally walk out of your room, walk downstairs to get your tan, walk downstairs to get your makeup, walk downstairs to the venue. Like you just, you don't have to stress so much about like even like little things. If you're staying at an Airbnb that's 2 miles away, like what if there's traffic, right? What if parking is a nightmare? Like, it just kind of limits those little potential.
Rain. I've had
Yeah.
girls get stuck in the rain before.
Yeah. And then, of
Mm.
course we know there's Uber, but like it's just an added stressor you don't need. So
Yeah.
sometimes staying at the host hotel. And I know that sometimes host hotels can be a little bit more expensive, but just even getting like a roommate if you know somebody that's going to be competing at the same show. But it is sometimes good to pay a little extra just for that less stress and just peace of mind.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's without a doubt. Know the show and where to stay.
And
Yes.
know yourself. If you're a higher stress individual, then a lot of times it's easier just to stay at a host hotel. Or if you're not a planner,
Right.
stay at the host hotel. Because some people like to plan everything out. They have everything. They've looked up everything. They have all the addresses, know exactly where to go for everything. And they're fine with that type of thing. But if you're not, and me, I kind of just go a lot of times when it's myself. I'm saying, yeah, we'll figure it out when I get there because I'm just a low stress person when it comes to shows now. But for a
Yeah.
lot of people, it's not like that. I mean, I'm so low stress with it. To bring one thing, uh, I went to North Americans and had my hotel booked, hand booked, everything booked. My coach was coming up there. I walked up there to check in for the show, and I had not even registered for the show.
Evan.
So, yeah.
Oh,
Luckily, they just let me register there. Of course, they're not going to say no, but
You're lucky it was Gary Udit. I
yeah,
mean,
that was COVID year too,
in the
wow.
tent. Oh
in
wow.
the tent. Yep.
Well, another mistake that we could talk about too, like on this topic of like show weekend is, and this, there is no right or wrong answer to this, but I think you kind of have to know the person you are of like, are you somebody that is better off if you have like a good support system with you, right? Like if you maybe you bring, I don't know, your significant other, or maybe you bring your best friend or your mom or your sister, right? Like having kind of that security blanket with you to be there if you need anything. Like that can be great for some people, but also, you know, I've heard of some instances where, and I've been around certain competitors before that like maybe their significant other is not supportive, and having their significant other with them all weekend makes them even more stressed. And like, obviously, that's not something you want on show weekend. So I think you kind of have to know yourself of like, do you thrive best when you have somebody there with you? Or some competitors are the opposite. Some people like to just go be alone and not have that added stress. So that could be a potential mistake too, is if you know, if you're bringing somebody with you who just, you know, acts like they're annoyed the whole weekend or acts like you're a burden, like that, you know, that could potentially hinder you and your ability to enjoy the weekend as well.
Yeah. That
Yep.
brings up a really good point, and it's a conversation I had with one of my clients who's she's a first-time competitor, and will be a very, very good competitor. And we picked an initial show, and then we have one that's like 4 weeks after that. And she asked me about 4 weeks ago. She's like, "Hey, my parents are thinking about booking flights down for this show, for the first show. Do you think it's a good idea?" And that's when we had the conversation of, let's not add any more undue stress than we need here, because first of all, we don't even know if we're going to be ready for this first show in time.
Right.
And then if your family books everything, then one or two things is going to either have to happen. Either you're not going to be all the way ready, or you are ready, right? That's best case. Worst case, you're not ready. Other cases, I feel the need to push you way harder than I should ever need to push you to try to get ready for that arbitrary show that didn't matter just because you had family booked when we could have done one 4 weeks later than
Yep.
that. So that I think is a big mistake a lot of competitors do. Um, Shoot, I've had a few this year with it that I recommended. Just life stuff happened for them, right? They would get injured or they would get sick, and I say like, "Hey, there's shows, especially in Florida, shows every weekend. Like, we don't have to do this show." Well, I
Right.
kind of have to because my whole family's flying in from all over the
Yeah.
country.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yep.
like, this is your first show. I understand wanting your family there, your family wanting to come support you. I truly understand that. And if you think you're going to be one of those people, it's like, hey, I just want to do one show this year and be finished with it. I get that. But if your plan is, hey, look, I'm just going to do a few shows, see if it's my thing with it, have them come to the second show on there.
Yep.
You're going to feel
Second
better.
show is
It's going to be
always
less
much
stress
more,
on you.
always way more relaxed.
Yeah.
Pressure, yeah, that's really hard. I think that I totally get that if you're a first time competitor and your family wants to see you and support you, but I don't know. I feel like the first one you almost kind of got to keep on the DL a little bit. Like maybe
Yeah.
share it with those that are really close to you, if you want, but get that first show over first, and then you're gonna feel a lot less nervous and jittery. And then maybe that second show is the one that like your family can come and watch. But you know
And
what? Also, another awesome thing is like and it's becoming more and more prevalent as the years go by, live streams. Like these live streams, most big shows have really good live streams and pay-per-views. So, if your family wants to watch, that's a great way for them to watch too. And then they don't have to sit through all the divisions, they're in person.
Yeah, look, it also depends on someone's goals, right? If
Right.
someone like, hey, I just want to compete and I want to get on stage, cool. Then you want your family to come to a first show and all that. I completely understand all that type of thing. If it's like kind of a bucket list type item, like this is always something I've always just wanted to do. I truly get that. But if you're going in, you're like, I love training, I love all this, and you've made that choice before you can go to your first show that this is something you're going to want to pursue, then you need to think about things like that. Because I can tell you, if you have your family come to the first show, you're going to feel obligated for them.
Yeah.
Because look, going to shows is not fun for families. It's not. Like it's you sit around, especially for finals, you're going to wait to see your kid on stage for 20 seconds, maybe most of the time. And
Yeah.
then you're going to feel obligated as that child to make sure to entertain them and be around them and do things with them afterwards. You're going to feel obligated for that. And that's just a whole nother level of undue stress to put on
So
yourself.
my first show I ever did, my parents came and I had a bunch of friends come, but I was in Orlando, so it was like, oh, Paul's doing the show. A bunch of my friends came, but I actually wrote my parents like a 5-page like biography explaining the show, like what they were seeing. Why was I orange? Why did I look sick? Like, because my parents saw me the day before, and I just remember my mom was like, "Honey, are you okay?"
Yeah.
And I
Yes.
literally like ripped my top off and hit a couple poses, and she was like, "Oh," I was like, "Yeah, yeah, it's just the face. Like, I get the, you know."
I,
So you didn't go in 23, Evan, when I did the Miami show. So I go to they had the check-ins for Pro Bikini. I had a couple Pro Bikini girls. So I go to the check-ins for Pro Bikini before my check-ins, right, for NPC. So I'm sitting in the room and I won't say her name, but a Pro Bikini girl that I've known for years comes over to me and she's like, "Paul, are you okay?" I was like, "What do you mean?" She's like you don't look like yourself. I go, "Well, I'm competing tomorrow." She goes, "Thank God. We all thought you had cancer."
Oh my gosh.
oh, funny story on that too. My first show I ever competed at, my parents didn't know anything about anything, right? And I remember it was like 3 days before the show, and my mom called me. She's like, "Hey, we pulled like a couch out of your grandpa's house. Do you mind coming over and just helping us carry it like from the truck into the garage?" I'm like, "Sure, that's no problem at all." I get over there. I walk up, and the first thing my mom looks at me, she goes,
Here we go.
"You
Yeah.
don't look, you don't look good."
Right.
She's like, "You don't look okay. You look sick." And I was like, "It's just part of it, Mom. I'm just lean. I'm just lean." And then I look in the back of the truck, and it's not a truck, it's a U-Haul. And it's 3 couches, a
Not a couch.
refrigerator,
It's the
and
whole.
a giant freezer.
Oh man.
I remember, okay, it's my parents. So I go and I'm helping carry everything out. I just drop it. I look at them. I go, "Don't call me again until after the show." I was, and they just looked at me like, "We hope you never do this again." I was like,
Um,
they didn't understand how tired and exhausted and beat down I was at that point. And I was like, you told me it was a couch."
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I think we all probably have those stories because, like, I remember the first time I ever competed. My mom at the time, and I've told this story before, but she really thought I had an eating disorder. Just and part of it was like I was living in Tampa. She lived in St. Louis at the time, so when I traveled back home and she saw me, she was like, "Oh my God, like, are you okay?" And so she set up like at this time she set up a appointment for me with a dietitian, with a doctor. Like it was insane. And that was not a great time of my life. But, to your point, Paul, about how you wrote out like these pages and explained it to your family, ever since then, now, granted, that was years ago, but like I have really done a good job at like explaining to my mom what the sport entails. And, she's not a bodybuilder, nor will she ever be, but like she understands it a lot more now. In fact, she loves it so much where she wants to come to as many shows as possible, like with me now. So people can come around. I think that
Oh yeah.
all like obviously all of us three have stories of like our family not maybe being super supportive in the beginning, but I think if you do a good job at explaining it to your family, which that's you have to take on that role though as an athlete. You can't just assume that people are going to understand the sport without explanation, but explaining it to them over time, I think really does wonders. Or, sometimes even all it takes is your family like watching you at a show one time for them to see how happy it makes you. And I think that they can come around over time.
I think part of it too is when I started competing, not that it, I mean, it's way different now. Like there's a lot more information about competing. It's a lot more visible, especially through Instagram and everything else these days. There's a lot, just people understand it just more in everyday life than they did when I first got into it. So I couldn't have really explained it to my parents what it was because I had never been to a show. I'd never done a show. I had no clue about anything. And my coach at the time really didn't explain a lot to me either. So it was me just trying to figure it all out kind of as it went. And I always try to remember that too, right?
I
Especially
mean,
with
it's
earlier
honestly a
competitors.
good point, Evan. Something whenever I'm talking to a competitor about doing a show, I always say if you haven't been, you have to go
Yeah.
before you compete because if you haven't been on the audience side watching the show, you don't really understand what you're doing when you're doing
Yep.
quarter turns or you're like you're hitting poses, but when you see a show, you can start to look at people that stand out to you. Why does that person stand out? And I remember plain as day the first show I ever went to. I watched the show and there was a guy on stage that I could not take my eyes off. I was like, God, that guy looks amazing. He must be massive. Like he's shredded and huge. And I'll never forget because he walked by me like 30 minutes later with his shirt off. He might have been 160 pounds. And I was like, oh, you look good up there if you look bad over here. You've got to be shredded. And I just remember my whole prep, all I cared about was I want to be the most shredded. I'm not going to be the biggest, but I will be the most shredded. And I did. And I won because of that. But so like if I hadn't gone to the show, I probably would have been in the gym like, oh, I'm losing muscle. I'm getting skinny. But
Yep.
in my brain, I wasn't getting skinny. I was getting shredded. And the worse I looked at my clothes at the end of prep, the better I looked at my update pictures.
Yeah,
That,
the
that,
stage definitely, and you don't usually know this unless you go to a show or if you've gotten on stage yourself. The stage definitely has a way of adding like an element of weight to the frame because like I think all competitors get to a point where we almost feel like, oh gosh, I'm too small. Like I have no muscle. I look skinny. I look sick. But usually like that look transpires very well onto stage, believe it or not. But that's something you don't know unless you've gone to a show or you've just gone through a prep yourself. That's why I think it's hard. Like I actually had a girl that I talked with a couple weeks ago who signed up with me and she self-coached for her first prep. And she told me, she's like, I did not realize like how lean I really needed to be. She's like, before my show, I thought I looked awesome. And then I get on stage and I was like, whoa, I was definitely not as lean as I needed to be. Right. So that's definitely sometimes a mistake people have to make to learn what you really need to look like to achieve that level of leanness on stage.
Yeah, I've
and
been getting
especially as a,
comments lately, like, because I've been posting some updates. They're like, are you competing? And I'm like, just so we're clear, I'm still 15 pounds from stage lean. Like, I look good
yeah,
in updates and I look good, but like that's stage lean is not comfortable.
no,
No, and a lot of times too, I think for female athletes, like bikini athletes and even fit model, people will like see your front pose and they may say, oh, you're ready to step on stage, right? But it's then you turn around and hit your back pose. And like, I know for me in particular, that's usually where like the majority of the last bit of body fat comes off of. So that's another thing. I feel like a lot of people think like, oh, I'm ready from the front, but then it's like, you got to
My
still,
first show, my only goal was to have glute striations because for guys, that is when you're in. That is when you're
yeah,
ready.
yep.
So
And the thing too, especially if you're a guy and you're a newer competitor, you are going to look like you don't work out in clothes. If you're a newer competitor, you are going to look like an anorexic dude walking around in clothes for the most part. You are until you take your shirt off and everyone's like, oh, geez. And same thing like online with Instagram. Because she sent me a message this morning saying she heard her name on the podcast last week. So we'll do it again this week. Like my client, Brittany, she has a super stupid good front pose. And she'd post a lot of pictures of front pose. And everyone's like, oh, you're ready, you're ready, you're ready. And Paul saw it when she was up in Pittsburgh. Well, she's 10 pounds less than she was in Pittsburgh. And she's not a big girl, right? But now everything's there. But from the
yep.
front, I mean, she could have looked like she could have won a pro card from the front at that point, right? But when
Yeah.
she turned around, it was not there
uh,
yet.
Yep.
And
I feel like that's pretty much like 95% of female
it
athletes is
is.
you lean out pretty.
Show doesn't start till you turn around.
Right, right. You lean out pretty quickly in the front, and then it's that the back is like I usually say you have to get uncomfortably lean to see that glute conditioning be where it needs to be on
Oh
stage.
yeah,
So
your leggings are
Yes.
going to be falling off you. You're going to put a hole. You can put your hand in your waist. Like
it's
you're
gonna
just,
hurt when you sit like for long periods of time,
yeah.
like your butt's gonna hurt. Yeah. Well,
Th-
another are we go
This,
ahead, Evan.
this is one thing I know that all of us can relate to when our clients start with their check-in pictures, and then as it progresses along, especially like their bikini bottoms, they start almost like falling off
Yeah,
in the front.
they're like waving.
They're
Yeah,
like wavy, and like I'm like,
yeah.
oh wow, okay, now we're getting somewhere when it
Yeah,
comes to things. Yeah,
yeah.
I notice that. I always look at it. I'm like, are these the same size here?
Right, right. Well, another little mistake too that is actually I want to the great time of year to point this out too. So I made this mistake my first show where I burn really easily out in the sun. Like even if I put on sunscreen,
Yes.
I know that about myself. I don't tan. And I remember my first show, like I at that time of my life, I didn't have my car on campus, so I was walking everywhere, and I had this really weird like tan line from I don't know time I was outside a couple like weeks prior to the show, and it was like not a swimsuit tan line, but like a really weird tan line from I don't know like my sports bra or something, and I still had that like tan line when I went to go and get my stage tan, and I remember the tanning ladies didn't love that. I mean, they can try and cover it up, but like there are some instances where and I remember seeing this last year. There was a pro on stage, and I remember her tan looked really like weird and blotchy. And then I talked to her afterwards, and she said she had gotten really like a bad burn
Oh,
out.
I know who you're talking about. I
Yeah,
remember that. It
a
was like
bad
girl power last year. Yeah.
Yep, yep. She had gotten a really bad sunburn like the week before. And, you know, even with that stage tan, it didn't quite cover it up. So that's something to just be aware of, is especially if you're competing this time of year in the summer, if you're going to lay out, I always recommend either doing one of two things: wear a posing suit. So that way, if you get a tan line, it mimics stage coverage, or just lather up that sunscreen so you don't get burned, or just don't lay out in general. We could do what I do,
Yeah.
don't lay out.
Look, it gets risky.
Yeah.
It gets risky because if you lay out, because I would go to the tanning bed to get a little base coat, base tan before I would go.
Mhm.
And if you aren't careful with that and you have a little bit of a sunburn going in, like within a day of the show or so, you your body will be inflamed. It
Well,
will
I
be
got another
inflamed.
one. Just the
You
same
need to
thing
be
is,
smart and stay away from that stuff.
I've had a few clients wake up on Friday and I'll be like, What happened? You look terrible." "I didn't do anything. I went and got a massage last night." Do
Oh
not get a
yeah.
massage near stage. Most people think of massages as relaxing, but it's quite inflammatory. And you start messing with, fluid shifting in your body. So I always tell people the last massage you can get is the Sunday before the show.
Yeah.
Do not get one in peak week.
Even like lymphatic drainage massages, all those things, stay away from all of it. Stay
It's
away from
just an
all of it.
unknown. If you haven't done it before, it can create like, yeah, you might look good for an hour, but you might look terrible for 6. And I think that's where I just like to stay away from variables that are
Yeah.
unpredictable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that's a great like segue into other mistakes being made, especially like in peak week, is people wanting to do things that they haven't done all the way through prep. Like I remember I was talking to a girl months ago, and I didn't coach her, but I was helping her with her posing, and she told me that her coach was like just told her because she felt kind of uneasy about this, but she's like, yeah, my coach recommended on Friday night before the show to get a burger and fries, and she's like, I'm kind of worried about that. I haven't had a burger and fries like my whole prep, and my digestion's really sensitive, and it's like in peak week, in my opinion, should not be a time where you're adding in anything new that you haven't already tried, right? We always hear about the burger and fries, and like that can, it can be a great thing for some athletes if you have tested it beforehand, right? Like I'm testing that with a couple of my athletes right now that are ready early, but I would never just say, okay, well, Friday before show, we're going to do burger and fries, even though you haven't had a burger and fries your entire prep. Like it's just too risky, right? Or people that, try to take, oh gosh, I remember I did this one time. Like thankfully it was before peak week, but I was really desperate from like from a digestion standpoint. And I got this like natural, I think it was just smooth move tea. And it ended up actually giving me the opposite effect where I was like very watery from it. So
Mhm.
like you just don't want to jeopardize anything that last week leading up to show day. You may think, oh, I'm going to try this one thing. I'm desperate, but like you just don't want to risk anything up until that show day or add in anything new to the equation.
I agree with that. I think also too, if your coach does bring up something like that, like, hey, let's do a burgers and fries, bring up your concern to them. There's been a few occasions I've done it with athletes where we have not tested before. And the reason that I did it is, well, really twofold. Number one, it wasn't going to be our only show. We were going to run multiple shows. And number two, I felt like the risk was worth the reward on it. Like we were either super flat or I'm like, hey, it's worth it kind of at this point. All the meals have been in. We can't really keep feeding you that much more on top of it at this time of the day. Then maybe it's worth trying. But that's a conversation to have with the athlete too, right? Because a lot of times if you can put their mind at ease with it, everything goes a little bit better. Because if
Well, and
stress
I
is
think
high, digestion is going to go to crap.
when people hear burger and fries, they think, oh, it's just a free for all. No, I have a very specific
Yeah.
instruction. Weigh the fries, very specific instructions on the burger. And if you use a chain that's in every city, it becomes very predictable.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I was just talking to Lana because we're in prep right now for the Olympia, and if we're ready early, we're going to do a couple shows before and definitely some shows after. But so the season that she had, I don't know you guys remember where she was in the top three for points.
Yeah.
We got second 3 shows in a row. Second. Literally like got beat by like amazing competitors like Jordan and like we just kept, that was like back then girls were doing 4 or 5 shows. It was crazy. Like we would just keep showing up and the same girls would be there and we're like, dope. So we finally had a lineup that was favorable and the feedback from the show before was we want to see you come in a little drier. And I said, well, Lana, we've been doing a burger and fries before every show. So maybe we just switch it up. Just, bring something different. Well, we didn't do the burger and fries. She got like fourth. And the feedback was like, what you lost muscle this week. You look so small. The same judge. And I said, Lana, after prejudging, go have a burger and fries. She came back to finals and they're like, oh, this was the look. So it
Uh,
just tells you like these judges, when they see your physique over and over, they
yeah.
know what they're looking at. And so, yeah, for like literally that's why I brought up the conversation I had with Lana was like literally like, we have to be burger and fry lean.
Yeah.
It
That's,
just is a different, when you can eat a burger and fries now, for, 60, 70 grams of fat, it's not that carb heavy, fries and a bun, but it's the sodium and the fat and the carbs all together. When you're that like depleted, it just makes you pop. Your skin looks shrink wrapped.
yeah.
Hmm. And
That's
a
a,
lot of that too is determined too on when you step on stage the next day as well. With that.
yeah.
A lot of that can determine. And Paul, we've talked about that. Like
Yeah.
when is a good idea to do the fries and when's not a good idea to do the fries.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
Because
Sometimes I'll just do the
especially,
burger and rice. Yep.
yeah.
Yeah. No, that's all. Yep. And I mean, I've had some competitors instead of the burger and fries the night before, order a Chipotle bowl and put it in their fridge and eat that in the morning because that's loaded
Hmm.
with sodium and so like there's different ways to do it, but the idea is finding something that allows you to really be filling out when you're on stage versus flat.
And this is something else I want to get across to people too, is people like because a lot of times we'll preach like consistent sodium, right? Consistent sodium, consistent sodium.
Mhm.
And we keep things consistent. So if we need to manipulate it up, we can do
Yeah.
that. Now, there is times, sometimes I will bring sodium down going
Yeah.
into it slightly. And that's mainly because, especially if someone's cardio is really, really high leading into a peak week and their sodium's at a certain amount, I will stair step that sodium down a little bit because they're not sweating near as much toward the end as they
Right.
were at the beginning, right? So if they're eating the same amount of sodium or not sweating,
Yeah.
they're going to be holding on to all that. So all this stuff is determinate. There's not really a one size kind of fits all things, but sodium is a super duper important part of all of this.
Yep. That's
And when
why I have
people
people
get
bring
really thrown
pickles
off,
and salt packets backstage because I find the most common problem for my athletes on show day is keeping full, right? Because when you ramp food up, the body tends to speed up its burning through food. And so, and also on show day, what I find, if I have, let's say on my peak week sheet, I say, by prejudging, I want you to have like 80 ounces of water. Sometimes I'll call them and I'll be like, hey, like, okay, how long till stage? Oh, about 90 minutes. All right, how much of water you had? And they'll be like, oh, ooh, 16 ounces. I'm like, yeah, let's do 24 ounces and call me back in 30 minutes, because like the
Yeah.
makeup, the hair, getting to the venue, finding a spot backstage, you just don't keep up with things on show day as well. It's challenging. I've had some super OCD clients literally have like alarms on their phone for meal one,
Yeah.
this, da, da, da. Yeah, like they,
well, I have a few clients that I say that I'm like, put an alarm on your phone.
Right.
and say, especially because a lot of times it's not eating a lot of food, it's just keeping some food in your system. And I'll, like we said, we'll give them tasks, right? And say, like every 45 minutes, I want you to have like a rice cake with a little bit of honey on top and like a few pinches of salt, right? Like
Well,
something very
let's talk
basic.
about something that we learned, Evan, recently that I heard from one of our friends' YouTube channels. So apparently men are taking like Viagra and Cialis on show day.
Oh, that's been a thing for a hot minute. Yeah.
I feel like that could be a mistake.
I, I guess it could be on there. I could tell you this as a guy that's competed at a high level for a long time. I don't think there's any amount of Cialis or Viagra you could give me that would stimulate my sex drive at that point in any
Well, I
sort
mean,
of
you are
prep.
also
But
backstage with a bunch of fucking greasy men.
yeah, I
So,
don't think that's really going to do a lot there for me there. But yeah, I mean, look, it will make you kind of crazy vascular. So it's look, there's a ton of people that do it, a ton of people that do it. I've never done it, but I can absolutely see how that could make sense, though, why people would do it.
hmm.
It's like, I feel like another kind of somewhat on that topic. I've heard some people say that they've done, I would never do this, like an edible or like a gummy before. And truthfully, I think that maybe a Pure Nutrition Serenity gummy, but like an actual gummy, I don't think I'd trust that I could like walk in heels. But I
No,
Listen, that drug impairs people so differently.
it
I
does.
yeah.
have people very close to me that are comfortable doing that and driving. I cannot operate. I
No, you
must be
can't.
on my couch or quiet somewhere. I don't even mind being out, but I am not in charge.
Right.
Paul, speaking of this, we were at a show recently, Paul. I'm not going to say the show. You were sitting next to me. We were at finals, and one of my clients walked out. You're like, does she even care? I was like, she just told me she did a big edible backstage.
Oh, okay. Good.
Oh
Good.
gosh.
We
Yeah.
had a conversation after that
Oh, I know what you're talking
about,
about now. Yeah, that's very clear now. That makes a lot of sense. But yeah, like so, um,
yeah.
other big mistakes. I think a big one for women is peeing on themselves. Like that's a
Yeah.
challenge with trying to use the bathroom with the cup or the vaginal or like just the splashback.
Yep. Yeah, that's annoying. For sure. Yeah, I feel like the best thing I've just come to find that like is easiest for me, and it sounds so gross, but everybody understands. Like I get like a red Solo cup. That way
Yep.
it's big, and then I'll just pee into that and usually then dump it. I know some people will like put a hole in the bottom, but it's just
Mm,
way easier to like pee and dump, and then yeah, sometimes if I really trust myself, I won't use it. But it is really risky because if you do pee and it goes down your leg, it will definitely run the tan. In most cases, the tanning company will be there backstage to help, like
yeah.
touch you up. But it's just unnecessary stress you don't want to really have to worry about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I had a client once forget to shave,
Oh.
Brian DaCosta.
Oh, a guy. Oh, well,
Yeah.
yeah.
Literally, like we were going through our poses in the morning. I had saw him the night before, and I said, you got to shave your armpits, dude. He's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. So we're at prejudging at the Yorton Cup, the World Championships, going through the poses, and literally he hits a front double bicep, and I'm like, Brian, dude, I know you're chill, but you're too chill. You did not shave your armpits. He's like, oh my God. So now I'm walking around backstage like, does anybody have a razor? No,
Oh,
no.
God.
He went on stage with the full fucking Monty. Yeah.
I'm gonna start a trend. That's hilarious. Well, you know what? And that's a good point. Because I get this question a lot from my females of Lexi. I mean, obviously we know we need to shave the obvious areas, but like some people ask me, do I need to shave my whole body? Like, do I need to shave my arms? Do I need to shave everything? And I generally recommend yes, because even if like on your arms, even if your hair is light, the tan does pull to those follicles.
Mm. Mhm.
Sometimes the tan looks a little weird. So I just say for good measures, like shave your entire body, just because the tan will usually go on the best that way.
Just shave everything.
Yeah.
Just shave everything.
Shave everything. Yeah. When in doubt, shave everything.
And be careful. So one thing too that is a big, massive hack for people is the Norelco One Blade. It's a little green razor that has
Mhm.
disposable tops on there. It is about 99% good as a straight razor with almost 0% chance of cutting yourself. It
Yeah.
is absolutely phenomenal. You can get it at Target for like $30, and that will be enough to shave your entire body. Trust me, if you're a guy and you have to shave your chest, legs, anything like that, massive game changer. And then, especially too, you can use that. And then, if you want to go over with a straight razor, it makes things 10, not a straight razor, a regular razor, makes things 10 times easier. But especially as guys, the leaner you get, it gets really difficult to shave around your abs. Super easy to cut yourself because the skin is so thin.
Yeah, even
And
my face, because the lines get so jagged, I have to be
yeah,
careful with the razor because it's like my jaw, yeah, yeah.
that Norelco one blade, it is the biggest game changer you will ever find when it comes to shaving your
My
body.
first time I competed, I tried Nair, but I didn't like it.
Ooh,
I've done it multiple times. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
cannot do it. I don't think I've tried it since I was like 13, but I remember I did it and it was like it left a ton of cuts on me. I think it was just the reaction from it,
Yeah.
but I've heard a lot of people have that issue with like the Nair. It
I've
reacts.
done it on myself. I don't use that. I call like, oh God, what's it called? No, something. Nads. Called Nads. Nads. And I've used that
I literally
multiple
got in the
times.
shower and just fucking lathered up and
Yeah.
just like just and I remember like the next day I was like, oh man, I missed a line was here. I just kept noticing
I
things.
still shave myself after it, but I always would use it on my chest because I can't tell you how many national shows I went and did to where I would cut myself shaving the day before the show. And you would
Right.
see it and it would drive me insane. And it was
Yeah.
always somewhere around my core and it would just drive me nuts. I would always see it. And when you cut yourself, it shows when
Yeah.
it tans. So if you have a cut, it's going to show.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's going to stick out like a Sharpie marker on you.
Yeah, it definitely will. Yeah, and I
I
guess
have a whole process. Like it's like nair, it's like shave, then nair, then shave. Like it's a whole thing. Yeah.
got a method. Yeah, I guess like the last thing I can kind of think of on this topic of like show day stuff is consider too like overnight, like Friday to Saturday night if the show is Saturday. If you're in a hotel or even if you're not in a hotel, wherever you're staying, the temperature that you sleep in. So like I generally like to make it pretty cold because yeah, turn it down. Because last thing you want is to wake up drenched in sweat. Like that's really gonna mess up the tan. So make it pretty cold at night and just bundle up because you just don't want to wake up with your tan a mess.
I
I
will
had an
counteract
athlete
that.
I had an athlete once sit at prejudging at a national show all morning. And when she finally went backstage, because she was like open bikini, it was like the last class of the morning, which at North Americans is like 5 o'clock in the afternoon. She hadn't like checked her tan and she had been sitting in like her little pants all day. It literally like two different people. Waist up, she was dark. Waist down, she was white. And when she walked out on stage, I was like, what happened? She's like,
Yeah.
what? I was like, you have no tan on your legs. So it must have like absorbed into her pants because she was just sitting there all day.
The one thing about the temperature is yes, cut that shit down. I've had it too, where I'll even do this to myself in my own place with it, where I'll cut the temperature down so low that when I get under like the blankets and things like that, I will actually like shiver a little bit and actually start sweating more. So there is a fine line between that. There is
Oh,
a fine line
absolutely.
between that. So don't cut it down like as low as a hotel will allow it to go. Like that gets a
No,
little
Yeah,
crazy. But
you don't
you don't
want to
want to
break
like
it.
a lot of
shift.
people do though. A lot of people get in, they do boop, 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 as low as that thing will go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because yeah, you also don't want to be like shivering all night and like just running through, like wake up
It
super
makes you sweat.
flat.
It's like when you
Yeah,
shiver all night too, you're gonna burn through
yeah.
things. Like it's
That's
it's hard on your body.
absolutely, absolutely. It's funny because I have to shout them out. Melanie and Kelly at Pittsburgh. I remember going into their room and it was during the day, not at night. And they were like, "Oh yeah, I hope you don't mind. We have the temperature up, you know." And normally I'm like, "Okay, I'm cool with that," because I normally am fine with like higher temperatures. But I want to say it was like low 80s in their room, and I remember even
It was
me, I
hot.
was like, "Woo, it's a little hot." I was almost
Yeah,
breaking a
by the
sweat.
windows, we were standing by those windows. You could feel the heat, and I'm like, yeah, this is odd. But
Yeah.
yeah,
And speaking of that same room, I'd walked in there too after prejudging, and I walked in and Kelly was sitting there, and for somehow, like the lights were on, Kelly's talking. Somehow Melanie has like a pillow over her face, like pressed and like passed out, like just sleeping.
good for her. Well,
I'm like, good for you.
the
I
first
wish I had that in me.
after my first show, I remember after prejudging, my family was there. They all came back to the apartment where I lived, and I was out within like 10 minutes because the night before, I tossed and turned, and then all the adrenaline of prejudging. And I just remember like I woke up and I was like panicked because I was like, oh, what time is it? I had to be back at 5 and it was like 4:45. But like, yeah,
I
it's
envy you guys that can nap. I have never been a napper. Even asked my mom when I was a baby, I didn't nap. Like
I can take a nap right now, Lexi. Just give me 5 and I'll be out. You guys will just laugh. Paul's sleeping on the podcast. I
I
Hey,
don't.
Paul,
wish
Paul, you can do that.
I envy those
Not
people that can
magic
do
powder.
that. I can't
I
nap.
actually, I can actually plan to sleep on a plane. Like if I know I'm short on sleep, I'll be like, oh, cool, I'll sleep on the flight. Like if I got a 3-hour flight, I'm sleeping for 2 hours and 43 minutes. Like, yeah, I don't know.
I did
Everyone.
sl- I did sleep on the way back from Pittsburgh. First
I
flight I
did
slept on in a
too.
long time.
That yeah, that those early flights,
Is
yes.
that the early one we took?
Yeah.
Yep,
Like 4 or
the
5
one
a.m.
where Stephen was very peppy at that 5 a.m. Yeah, it was like 5:30 a.m.
Yeah, what was he doing? He was like dancing on
He
us.
was
He
like
was.
dancing around.
Dancing, and he even made a reel that it's
That's
like
what
it's
it
on
was. He made a reel of
Instagram.
him. He's like, hey, film me. I'm gonna dance on Paul. Yeah, I remember now.
Yeah, yeah.
I feel like he likes to just go against the grain because I remember the first time I was in Ohio with him and it was like 4 degrees and he was like, I love the cold. And he like went outside in just a t-shirt and I'm like 4 layers and like he just likes to be like
I,
odd.
I we were about to leave to go to the airport. I was like, "What time do we need to leave?" He's like, "We need to leave like right now." I was like, "Where's Paul?" He's like, "That's your problem." He just walked down the stairs and out the front door. I was like, "I'll get him."
I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, I was actually up. I had set my alarm, but it was like I think I went to bed at 1.
I didn't even sleep that night. We went to
Yeah, we
bed
had the
like
alarm set for like
1:30.
3:30 because I
Yeah.
like for me to sleep at all, I had to have everything. I took a shower because I was disgusting. We had walked like 12 miles that day. Then I had to pack everything. So all I had to do was like literally rise from the dead and leave. So like when my alarm went off, I was like ready to go. So I just waited till I
Yeah.
heard y'all moving. Yeah.
That's what I usually do if I have early morning flights is I'll sleep in what I'm gonna wear the next morning. That way I can just literally wake up, brush my teeth, wash my face, grab my stuff and
It
go.
always
Yeah.
is, it always seems like a good idea. You're like, oh, I'll be home by 8 a.m. Listen,
I know.
getting up at 3 a.m. for a flight, it's just not fun.
Well,
I
when we
guess
didn't go to bed until we didn't sleep. We didn't get back.
Yeah, but like that's the thing. It was an unknown. We went to the show. It took a little longer than normal. Then like well, Daniela got our pro card, so I stayed to watch that part. And then we went to go get food. There was only one restaurant open.
And
And
then
then we ran
everyone's
into
there.
then everyone was there. We wanted to talk to people. The Manions were there. It was like,
Yeah.
and then it's like at
We
that point,
you
it's like, what's the difference between going to bed at 11 p.m. and 1 a.m.? There's no
yeah.
difference.
Yeah.
I guess on the glass half full perspective of those early flights, usually at least they're not the ones that are ever delayed. So you don't have to worry about delays.
That's
But
the beauty. That's
that
the
yeah,
beauty.
that's the beauty. But yeah, but I think those are
And we were home by like 7 a.m. I mean, I was
oh
literally at my house by like 7:30 a.m. Had the whole
yeah,
I was working at like 9:30 in the morning. I was working. Yeah.
yeah. You get the whole that's why I wanted to book that flight. I was like, I literally won't have to take off any time on Monday. I just come home and like start the work day. So
All right. Well, I think we've covered. We're rambling now.
this was a fun one.
If you guys are still listening, you get a special treat right now. We are planning a free event at Brett Contreras' gym for July. So comment below if you'd be
Oh,
interested in a free posing and training seminar, free of charge. We're gonna have to figure out a way to like limit, but free. Free 99. It's just going to be a couple hours. It's just going to be casual. Come in if you want to train, you can train. Come in if you want to pose, you can pose. We'll have a couple posing coaches. A couple of us will be there. But Brett's gym, I talked to him about it. He loves the idea. Probably a Sunday, which
Okay.
maybe change things, but I think a Sunday would be good. Um,
his gym is located in Fort Lauderdale. For those who
Fort
do not know.
Lauderdale. And before you ask, no, you can't have the address. It's a private gym. We will give it to you when we figure this out. So if you're still listening, comment below. Yes, in for the free Fort Lauderdale, just one day. We'll just call it like a prep seminar, fit model, bikini, wellness, figure, whatever you are, just come in and we'll pose, we'll train, we'll hang. And yeah, so I'm thinking late July,
Okay.
early August, somewhere in there.
Cool. I'm down.
I know you're down. And in fact, I thought it might be fun if we took the train.
Yes, Paul, let's do. Oh my gosh, yes, I can be in charge of that.
Okay.
I'll I'll look at tickets. That would be fun. The Amtrak is a blast.
Yeah, so maybe
So
we
stop-
could take the train from Tampa to Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. I'd have to take a different one.
Evan, you can take the Bright
They have
Line.
one. They have Brightline.
I can
Brightline.
take the Bright Line.
That's actually why they made it, was because of
Yeah.
Disney. Yeah.
The Bright Line is probably even better than Amtrak. It is more expensive, but I mean, the Amtrak is not too bad because I can literally walk to it from my place. So yes, let's do that, Paul. That will be fun.
Well, since I drive my microwave now, it would cost me like $30 to get down there and back. And my microwave.
Yeah, but you got like 400 miles range. My microwave only has 250 miles range, so I have to drive the truck.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I did upgrade the truck. I don't know if I told you guys.
Yes, you
Oh,
did.
you did? I did not
Yeah.
know that. Wait,
Well,
so
it was
Made it easy.
making some funny noises. It was 10 years old, and I thought, you know what? Let's upgrade while we still can.
yeah,
Yeah.
funny noises, especially with the road trips that you do. Yeah, can't be having that.
No, I love my road trips, and it's an upgrade. When you go from a 2015 to a 2023 car,
Very different.
my God, it's like, man, I've like, now I'm like, I was literally driving like a freaking Hyundai, from the 80s. It's what it feels like.
That's what it
Like,
feels like.
the ride's
Yeah.
so smooth, the technology's so much better. Yeah.
That's funny.
Nah,
The
it's
cabin
beautiful.
is so quiet. Like when I'm driving, you cannot hear anything. Like if someone's on the phone with me, when you're on a phone call with someone, you don't want them to like feel like, oh, you're on the phone in the car.
Yeah.
I asked my friend, they're like, you're in your car? I was like, yeah. So it's that quiet.
Nice.
It's really nice.
All right, y'all. Well, hopefully you enjoyed this. Be sure to give Lexi a shout out for coming up with yet another great topic.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Lexi.
And
welcome.
thank you to Reaction. I drank it the whole episode. It's all gone now. All right, guys.
Delicious.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening.